My name is Brett Fairbairn, and this short video about the Rochdale Pioneers is available for your use under a Creative Commons license that allows you to share it freely as long as you attribute it to its source, the Centre for the Study of Cooperatives at the University of Saskatchewan. Rochdale, England is known by millions of people around the world for one reason. A handful of labourers established a cooperative there in 1844 that became a basis for a worldwide movement of cooperatives, the Rochdale Society of Equitable Pioneers. But who were the pioneers? What did they do, and why did they do it? There are a lot of legends about Rochdale, and these are partly true. So it's sometimes said that the Rochdale Cooperative was founded by starving weavers who had been put out of work by the Industrial Revolution. It's been said that it was the world's first successful cooperative, and also that its principles have guided all cooperatives ever since. None of those things is exactly true. It's not quite right that it was started by unemployed weavers. It was not the first successful cooperative, and the principles of cooperatives have been debated and reflect many different intellectual sources. But it is true for certain that the Rochdale Cooperative was the start of an important rebirth of cooperation and helped transform cooperatives into a social movement. So how did that begin? Well, in the 1840s, Rochdale was a depressed factory town suffering from economic and technological change, high rates of unemployment and underemployment, certainly many unemployed weavers, and a failed weavers' strike. It was also a centre, and had been for a generation, of important political and social reform movements, including campaigns to reform British politics, was a centre of Chartist activity, the famous 19th century campaign for workers' suffrage and other social improvements, and very interestingly, Rochdale had been a centre of activity by a group of people called the Owenites. Owenism was a 19th century social and political movement that sought to improve the status of the working classes, especially through education and through self-help. Owenite activists, organizational leaders in Rochdale had built cooperatives and friendly societies, workers' insurance cooperatives, prior to Rochdale, and they brought that knowledge together when the time came to form a new cooperative. So it was working class activists and the experience of generations of organizing and mobilizing among the laboring population in Rochdale that came together with the distress of the weavers and with other social interests to produce the new cooperative. A group of temperance activists also joined in, part of a 19th century social movement to promote moderation in the use of alcohol. All of these people together joined the impulse to create the new cooperative and to design its objects and its practical activities. The first project of that cooperative was to open a store. So in December of 1844, with a couple of dozen members, the Rochdale Society of Equitable Pioneers opened their doors, and they began with an inventory that was really quite modest. 28 pounds of butter, 56 pounds of sugar, 600 weight of flour, some oatmeal, some candles, about 17 pounds sterling in total inventory and assets. So a very, very modest beginning. And those commodities illustrate how the cooperative started on an extremely small scale to satisfy urgent daily needs of the members, to feed their families and for their light and their fuel. By the end of the first year, that store had succeeded modestly, and it had attracted something like 74 members. So it was a very small-scale, practical, pragmatic beginning, but the statutes of the society indicate that the members had far-reaching goals. They laid out in what they called Law the First in their statutes or bylaws what their objects were. And they certainly began with the statement that they would benefit the members by establishing a store for the provision of food and clothing. But they then went on to lay out a whole variety of other long-term goals: the building of houses, cooperative housing, manufacturing of products to employ members, renting an estate or estates of land to grow food, and ultimately they said that as soon as practicable, their society shall proceed to arrange the powers of production, distribution, education, and government to establish a self-supporting home colony of united interests. A cooperative village, in other words. They were seeking to create an entirely cooperative way of life by beginning with a very modest and small shop. So that was the beginning and the dream. And what the Rochdale Pioneers discovered is that the retailing business took off. Their store flourished. It was meeting urgent needs. More members joined. They paid in share capital. The business expanded. And pretty soon, by the 1850s, other working people in other towns across England were taking note and wanting to do the same thing. Cooperatives just like Rochdale started to spring up across Britain. Hundreds of them by the 1870s. By 1914, almost 1,400 cooperatives on the Rochdale model with almost 3 million members across Britain. So Rochdale became a social movement. It was an extraordinarily successful cooperative, and that's one of the reasons it's remembered. What Rochdale signifies is a grassroots social movement of people who are meeting pressing needs of people in communities while inspired by social ideas, built on the basis of local ownership, one town at a time, and built on the basis of starting small and expanding gradually as the education and capacity of the members increased. So that's why Rochdale is remembered. That's its significance to cooperators around the world. The partnership of a cooperative enterprise with a social movement, a practical way to proceed in small steps towards a social dream.